Discover how I helped expose my reckless boss and inspire change in just 6 months. Jessica sat at the small table in her kitchen, the morning sun streaming through the window, illuminating Lily's sketches of swirling planets and shining stars. "Mom, look what I made," Lily exclaimed, her bright eyes full of excitement. Jessica couldn't help but smile, her heart swelling at the thought of her daughter's dream to reach for the stars. But alongside that joy tugged a weight in her chest, a constant reminder of the 2 jobs she juggled just to keep their lives afloat. Before the sun was fully up, she'd be flipping pancakes and pouring coffee at the local diner, surrounded by the regulars whose laughter echoed the warmth of their small town. Yet now things were shifting. After years of scrubbing tables and serving plates, she secured a job at a booming tech startup. Her heart raced with the thrill of it. Mark, the charismatic CEO, radiated energy, promising ambition and innovation. But soon whispers of unsafe practices began to echo through the sleek offices. Jessica felt a chill creep over her as she overheard employees discussing injuries, accidents that could have been avoided. Memories flooded back of her father's teachings. "Integrity is everything, Jess. Never compromise your values." In that moment, she felt the battling forces of loyalty and responsibility crash inside her. Each day at the startup felt like a balancing act. She donned a mask of loyalty, all while collecting pieces of evidence against Mark's reckless decisions. The stakes grew with every conversation she overheard. Jessica's heart thumped with fear as she watched whistleblowers face backlash, friends turn to ghosts in the halls they once filled with camaraderie. And then one night, while working on a project late, Jessica stumbled upon an old article about Mark's struggles, the relentless pressure to excel consuming him. Suddenly, he transformed from a mere villain into a person, a human being under pangs of ambition. Her emotions tumbled in a whirlwind. Could she still expose him while grappling with compassion? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the town hall meeting approached, Jessica felt a tightening in her chest. Would she speak the truth that weighed so heavily on her? The very thought of standing before familiar faces, her neighbors and friends, filled her with dread and exhilaration all at once. What if no one believed her? What if voices were raised against her? The night before the meeting, she and Lily sat beneath the starry sky. "Mom, do you think astronauts get scared?" Lily asked, her innocent gaze drifting toward the cosmos. "Sometimes, sweetheart. But they reach for the stars anyway," Jessica replied, her heart heavy with uncertainty. As she prepared to walk into that room, everything within her screamed to harness the courage she'd always wanted to show Lily. With the community watching, would she find her voice? Would she choose integrity over fear? The pivotal moment loomed just ahead, the air charged with anticipation, ready to change everything. Jessica stepped into the town hall, her heart pounding like a drum. The room buzzed with chatter, its familiar warmth enveloping her despite the icy fear gripping her gut. She scanned the faces of neighbors and friends, each face a reminder of what was at stake. Would they see her as the hero or the traitor? A long table lined with town officials dominated the front. Mark sat among them, his confident posture and charming smile a stark contrast to the turmoil inside her. He waved at familiar faces in the audience but seemed oblivious to the weight of her gaze. "Next up, Jessica Green," the moderator announced. The words echoed in the air. Here it was the moment that could shatter everything. Taking a deep breath, she rose. Her legs felt heavy, but every step resonated with the hope she carried for Lily, to show her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. As Jessica approached the podium, a hush fell over the crowd. Her palms sweated, and she felt the weight of their expectations. She glanced at Lily, sitting with her grandmother in the front row, her face alight with pride and concern. Jessica tightened her grip on the edge of the podium, grounding herself. "Thank you everyone for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady, surprising even herself. "I need to talk about something important. It's about my job at the startup." The murmurs started. She could almost feel their skepticism rolling in waves against her. Mark is he?'s brilliant. But there are practices in that office that are dangerous. I've seen coworkers get hurt because corners were cut. I can't sit back and watch this happen. The silence grew thick. Pausing, she was met with widened eyes and bated breath, as the reality of her words settled in like bricks. "What are you saying, Jess?" called out a familiar voice from the back. Dave, a friend who had worked with her at the diner. "You know he's been good for this town." "I know," she replied, her voice rising clearer now, confidence swelling. "But at what cost? We're talking about people's lives. They deserve better." With every word, the tension in the room shifted. Eyes darted nervously as heads turned to look at Mark, whose confident facade was cracking. She felt emboldened, the fire of her father's lessons igniting her purpose. "Integrity is everything," she whispered under her breath, channeling her father's spirit. Yet doubt still loomed nearby. What if Mark retaliated? The last thing she wanted was to uphold the reputation of someone so disreputable. But it carried a heavy burden, one that kept her awake at night. Would revealing the truth destroy everything she had worked for? Whispers fluttered among the crowd. "You'll regret this," she imagined Mark's voice echoing in her mind. Taunting, demeaning. Jessica shook off the fear, focusing on Lily's smile, lighting her path through the shadows of uncertainty. "I'm not the only one who has seen this," she pressed forward, desperation creeping in. "If we don't speak up now, we're saying it's okay for this to continue. It's not just about a job. It's about humanity." The room buzzed with a mixture of approval and doubt. And just as her emotions surged, someone from the crowd shouted, "What proof do you have?" Jessica's heart sank. The moment felt surreal, turning her triumph into trepidation. "I have documents," she stammered, suddenly feeling smaller, exposed. "I thought I could change things internally, but tension filled the room like a thick fog." Would she have the strength to reveal the truth she had fought so hard to keep hidden? Would she shatter the facade not just for Mark but for herself too? As she looked out at the expectant faces, the impending fear of retaliation weighed on her like a stone. "I can't do this alone," she admitted, vulnerability washing over her. "Will you stand with me?" What would they say? Would they rally with her or retreat into silence? The turning point was here, and with bated breath she awaited their response. Jessica's heart raced as the silence hung in the air, thick with anticipation. She could feel every eye in the room on her, weighing her words, measuring her resolve. Would they back her? Or would they watch her crumble under the pressure? Then from the back a voice cut through the tension. "I believe you, Jessica." It was Clara, her old high school friend. Startlingly loud, it echoed with the kind of ferocity that made Jessica's heart swell. Some heads turned towards Clara, surprised but intrigued. "Yeah, if you've got proof, let us see it." Another voice called out, a hint of support laced with bravery. More voices joined in, like a chorus rising against the tide of uncertainty. Hope flickered in Jessica's chest. "Thank you, Clara," she managed, her voice catching slightly. As she took a breath, gathering her thoughts as the crowd's reaction gained momentum. "I have emails, reports, documentation that shows what's been happening. I never intended to bring this public, but people need to know." A ripple of murmuring coursed through the audience. Jessica firmed her stance, feeling emboldened by Clara's support. "This isn't just about me," she emphasized, "it's about all of us. If Mark can cut corners at the expense of our health, what else is he willing to sacrifice?" She scanned the room, each familiar face surfacing memories, people she grew up with, neighbors who had supported her in trying times. They needed to understand the stakes. Do we want a town built on deceit? Or one where we look out for each other? The crowd stirred, shoulders straightened, eyes locked on her with a new intensity. The momentum was building, the energy shifting like a wave. Jessica could feel it. Her pulse quickened as the fear slipped away, replaced by something powerful: determination. "Mark may be charming, and he's brought prosperity," she continued, her voice rising above the din, "but it's time to uncover the truth. We can't let fear keep us silent any longer." Jessica's right. This time it was Dave again, standing up from his seat, his voice clearer and louder than before. "I've worked with her, and if she's saying there's a problem, then we need to listen." In that moment something shifted. People began to stand, one by one, like dominoes falling into place. A wave of resolve washed over the room, and Jessica could hardly believe what she was seeing. They were rallying with her, joining the fight. Just as Jessica was about to speak again, Mark sprang to his feet, his once friendly smile morphing into a scowl. This is ridiculous. You're all being manipulated by her lies. She is trying to sabotage everything I've worked for. Panic flickered in the audience. Jessica felt her heart drop. This is exactly what I'm talking about. She fired back, shaking her head. Fear and intimidation will not silence what's right. We deserve transparency. The crowd buzzed again, voices becoming a jumbled mix of encouragement and concern. Jessica's breath deepened. She could almost see their strength pooling behind her words. Mark took a step forward, his presence casting a long shadow over the room. I won't let one disgruntled employee ruin everything I've built for this community, he declared, his voice slicing through the growing hum. Jessica, he said, now fixing her with a gaze as cold as ice, you better tread carefully. What you're asking for is a war, then let it be a war for what's right. Jessica replied, the fire within her roaring to life. But doubt still lurked in the periphery of her mind. What if this war came with a price that was more than she was prepared to pay? As she held Mark's gaze, she could sense the tide was about to turn. Would this be the moment she truly changed everything? Or was it the beginning of her downfall? Uncertainty filled the air, thick and palpable. The battle for the heart of their town had begun, and Jessica had no idea how far it would go. But she had to believe in herself, in her community, because what was life without a fight for something meaningful? And as she stood her ground resolute, she realized one thing. This was just the beginning. What would happen when the evidence surfaced? Would it expose Mark's true nature? She took a step forward, feeling the rush of energy surround her as anticipation hummed in the air. What came next would define them all. Jessica's heart raced as the crowd's energy pulsed around her. There was a tremor in the air, a collective breath held in anticipation. Mark's words lingered like a thick fog, but the growing support around her felt like sunlight breaking through. She tightened her grip on the stack of documents she held, hoping their weight would anchor her resolve. Jessica, how can we trust you? A voice broke through, uncertainty threading its way back into the momentum. It was Nathan, a man she had known her entire life, his brow furrowed with concern. Uncertainty rippled through the crowd again, reminding her that even in this moment of connection, doubt still existed. What if this backfires? What if we lose everything? Another voice chimed in, echoing Nathan's fears. Jessica could see faces, familiar ones, clouded with anxiety. She could almost hear the gears turning in their heads. I understand the fear, she replied, searching the eyes of her neighbors. But living under a lie is far more dangerous than the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Behind her, she sensed the energy shift as Clara shifted slightly, creating a connection that tied them all together. A small nod from her friend gave Jessica a spark of stability, urging her forward. I've stood in your shoes, she began, her voice steadier now. I've thought about everything we've worked for, the community, the families, the jobs. But at what cost? We can't let fear dictate our choices. We owe it to ourselves to seek accountability. Jessica gestured towards Mark, whose unwavering glare remained fixed on her like a hawk watching its next meal. If we don't stand together, what will happen to this community when it crumbles from the inside? We can't pretend it doesn't exist. The atmosphere hung heavily, but there was also something electric in the air, a sense of transformation. Just then, she felt the warmth of a hand on her shoulder. It was Tom. You're right, Jess, he said with a tremor in his voice. I remember when we had community meetings and actually cared about each other's opinions. We need that back. One by one, the crowd began to rally behind her words. Let us show them we're stronger together. Clara shouted, her voice ringing with conviction. A chorus of agreement erupted as heads nodded. The tide of doubt started to change, but Mark, sensing the shift, clenched his fists. You all need to think this through, he insisted, desperation creeping into his tone. What will happen when you chase this rabbit hole? You could lose your incomes, your homes. Or we could gain our integrity. Someone yelled from the back, a voice that surprised even Jessica. She felt a wave of adrenaline rush through her, hopeful for a new beginning. With every passing moment, confidence blossomed in Jessica's heart. She had something real to fight for. The truth wasn't a weapon, it was a promise for a better future. As the crowd began to chant her name, Overwhelming encouragement spilled over like a rising tide, washing away her fears. She felt the weight lift as voices intertwined, creating an anthem of justice. "We're with you, Jessica." Looking at Mark, she dared to believe everything she wanted was within reach. But even as victory loomed, the reality of the battle loomed just as large. What if the truth brought pain? What would it cost her to keep pushing forward? "Let us put it to a vote," someone shouted, igniting a spark of hope. The idea ignited a wave of chatter from the crowd, and Jessica's heart began to race once more. Would they risk everything for the chance at a fair fight? The moment felt monumental. The next steps could change everything. She could see the nervous energy in the air, and a knot of excitement twisted in her stomach. But just as she was about to respond, Mark's voice cut through the noise. "You all think you can win this? You have no idea what you're getting into." Jessica raised her chin defiantly. "Then let us find out together. It's time to stand for what's right." Would they? Would they take this leap into the fray? Jessica could feel destiny pulling at her and her resolve deepen. It was just the beginning of a story that would define them all. The tension in the air crackled as the crowd bristled with energy. Jessica could feel the heat of their anticipation surrounding her, pushing her forward. Fear and hope danced within her, each vying for dominance in her heart. She took a moment, gathering her thoughts as the murmurs surged around her. Clara stood nearby, her expression a hearty blend of encouragement and apprehension. "Who's in favor of change? Raise your hand," Jessica called, her voice ringing out like a clarion. Slowly at first, hands began to lift, a few here and there. Jessica felt another wave of determination swell within her. She met Nathan's gaze, his brow still knotted with worry, but just a flicker of resolve ignited in his eyes as he raised his hand, awkward and hesitant. One by one, more hands followed, until suddenly the crowd erupted into a show of support. It felt like a tidal wave, crashing against the shore and pulling Jessica along with it. She couldn't help but smile, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. This was real. They were coming together. But then Mark stepped forward, his voice slicing through the collective joy. "You're all making a huge mistake," he bellowed, his anger boiling over. "This is not how change works. You don't even know what you're getting into. Then teach us." Clara shot back, her voice fierce. "Show us what we need to know, but don't use that as an excuse to keep us shackled." The crowd roared in response, enthusiasm igniting like a brushfire. Mark, wavering for a moment, pulse quickened. He looked around as if gauging the danger, but the tide was turning against him. Jessica could see the once familiar faces of her community shining brightly with newfound conviction. She felt as if she was standing on a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. "Come on, Jess. Let us move forward," Tom shouted, propelling her back to center stage. He pointed out a man in the front, someone who had always relied on Mark's authority. "Brett, you were on board with the idea. Join us." Brett blinked as if waking from a stupor. For a second the gears seemed to shift in his mind. Then he raised his hand, a loud declaration of allegiance to change. Cheers erupted again, drowning out Mark's scornful protest. Jessica raised her hands to quiet the crowd just a bit. "We have a chance to unite. This is about truth. When the truth is revealed, the lies will crumble." A palpable energy surged through her, a ripple of hope that seemed to weave through the crowd. "We don't need to be afraid of what comes next. We can build something better together. We can." But before she could finish, a shrill voice broke through. "You can build a lie that leads us all into chaos." It was Mandy, a figure of authority in their town, someone who had stood by Mark for years. The crowd hesitated, uncertainty creeping back in as Mandy glared at Jessica. "You think you can lead us into a better future. But the truth is, it's just an illusion." Jessica's heart plummeted, but she couldn't let it show. "Then let us find out if I'm wrong. But we won't back down because we fear the truth." A chorus of responses sprang up, voices rising to intertwine with her own. Jessica felt tears spill over, unexpected joy mingling with fear. Could she really hold them together? With a firm resolve she called out, "Let us vote. Not for Mark. Not for Mandy. But for the future we believe in. For integrity and community." The crowd erupted once again into clamor, and tension was palpable. Would this be the moment that defined their path? Or would fear pull them back into the shadows? The stakes felt impossibly high, but Jessica stood firm. What would this vote mean? As the anticipation thickened, the air crackled with a sense of purpose that was almost electric. Would they dare take the plunge into the unknown waters of change? A chill passed through her, as the weight of possibility hung in the balance. Let us see what we truly stand for, Jessica whispered, feeling the heavy shroud of uncertainty pressing down. Jessica's pulse raced, every heartbeat echoing in her ears as the crowd shifted, emotions intertwining like swirling leaves in the wind. She could already sense a dilemma lurking just beneath the surface. Would they truly embrace the uncertain path ahead? Okay, let us do it, Tom shouted, breaking the momentary silence that had fallen over them. Let us show them we're not afraid. The crowd responded, the chant building strength. Change, change, change. It felt like they were part of a great tidal force, ready to sweep everything before it. Jessica let the energy wash over her, a soothing warmth pushing away her lingering doubts. Let us begin the vote, she announced, raising her arm to gather their focus. All in favor of choosing a new leader, someone willing to embrace the truth and our community's future. Lift your hands high. Hands shot into the air, more boldly this time. The clamor of voices fueling Jessica's spirit. She allowed herself to bask in the moment, drinking in the realization that they might just be on the brink of something monumental. The tension of Mark's looming presence faded, melding into the tight-knit unity that began to blanket the crowd. But as hands raised high, a twisted knot of anxiety formed in Jessica's stomach. She remembered the daunting road that lay ahead. By casting off the old, they would invite the winds of change to blow through their lives. What if their decision jeopardized everything? Would she be the cause of their discord? Mandy once again took center stage, her voice draped in cool disdain. You're voting for a dream, Jessica. Dreams don't build communities, real leadership does. You're not ready. Jessica took a deep breath, steeling herself. Maybe we can redefine what leadership means, she countered, her voice punctuated with a mixture of vigor and vulnerability. If we don't try, we'll never know what could happen. Together we can define a better future. Resistance flickered in Mandy's eyes as she opened her mouth to shoot back, but this time a wave of voices drowned her out. Let us vote, they cried in unison, and for the first time, it felt like a chant that resonated deeper than mere words. As the counting began, a hush fell over the crowd, thick and heavy with uncertainty. People glanced at one another, sharing nervous smiles and tight-lipped expressions. Jessica scanned the faces around her, feeling fierce gratitude for every person standing shoulder to shoulder. She was no longer alone. When the votes were tallied, Jessica felt the air shift again. It's time to announce the results. Nathan's voice rang clear, firm but tinged with tension. The crowd leaned in as Nathan began to call out the numbers. The silence stretched, hanging heavily like an unspoken promise. For the future. He paused, his eyes meeting Jessica's, and then he slammed his palm down with a surprising force. The people have chosen Jessica. Gasps filled the air as shock mingled with disbelief. A wave of emotion washed over her, heart swelling as cheers erupted. She stood there, rooted in place, as if the weight of the world had just been placed upon her shoulders. Amid the celebration, a flicker of doubt swirled within, threads of fear creeping in. She realized the weight of her new role, the expectations that came with it. Could she be the leader they needed? Wait. Mandy's voice cut through the jubilant noise. This isn't just about who leads, it's about what you really believe in. Are you ready for the fallout? Jessica swallowed hard. Chaos was indeed gathering at the edges of this triumph. What challenges awaited her now that the mantle of leadership was firmly resting on her shoulders? As she scanned the faces of her community, possibility glimmered in their eyes. Yet, beneath that hope, a tide of trepidation danced just below the surface. Let us take our time to figure this out, Jessica said softly, the smile fading slightly. What comes next could change everything. And in that moment, just as doubts threatened to cloud her vision, a deeper realization flickered to life. Leading might be messy, it might be hard, but perhaps that was exactly what was needed, someone unafraid to weather the storm. But before she could gather her thoughts, a figure moved through the crowd, a familiar figure with their own agenda. And suddenly Jessica knew the real challenge was just beginning. The crowd buzzed with excitement, but Jessica felt as if she was standing on the edge of a precipice. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, looking for Mark amid the collective faces around her. The energy pulsed like a live wire, and she could feel every bit of it curling around her as if it was binding her to this moment. Even the cheers felt smothering at times, a mix of exhilaration and sheer terror tightening around her heart. Just then, the figure that broke through the throng became clearer. It was Mark, his presence still radiating authority despite the tremor in the atmosphere. He held a confidence that unsettled Jessica. His dark eyes swept across the crowd, assessing, calculating. She noticed the way he moved, each step imbued with the kind of purpose that made people uneasy. "Jessica," he called out, his voice ringing like an unwelcome bell. "You think you can lead this group? This bunch of dreamers?" The crowd fell silent, tension replacing celebration as he pointed a finger directly at her. "Yes, we can," Jessica replied, though even to her own ears her voice wavered. She desperately hoped her conviction could overpower Mark's disdain. "Change requires more than just optimism," he continued, an unsettling smile creeping across his face. "You'll find that out soon enough. Have you thought about the reality of the fallout? About how pretty dreams can turn ugly?" With every word, Jessica felt the weight of his challenge. He was right in one regard. She had only begun to scratch the surface of what leadership entailed. The gathering could easily turn if they let fear drive them, and she sensed that Mark wanted nothing more than for her to fail. "I don't have all the answers today," Jessica said, finding strength in vulnerability as she ignored the chill spreading through her. "But I do believe we can make something better together, something real." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd, fingers of doubt pushed aside by sparks of determination. Yet she couldn't shake off the unease gnawing at her gut. She craved a path forward, but could she forge it through the storm Mark was willing to unleash? "We'll need to prepare ourselves," she declared, the drive to rally her community taking shape through her words. "We have to ensure we're resilient, that we can face whatever changes come our way together." A glimmer of solidarity ignited among the crowd, cheers rebuilding as Mark's smirk deepened into a frown. "You think this is a game?" he spat. "You have no idea who's watching, Jessica. The real test is coming, and when it does, you'll be all alone." A cold shiver threaded through her at the implications of his words. Yet in that moment, another truth formed. Perhaps it wasn't just in the success she anticipated, that moment when everything would align perfectly, but rather in how bravely they could face the unknown together. Jessica straightened, locking eyes with Mark. "I'm not alone," she declared firmly. "We're a community, and I am ready to stand with them." The atmosphere shifted, an electric tension tethered to the collective spirit of the crowd. They had gone from spectators to allies, spiraling toward a new beginning that felt both exciting and frightening. But as the cheers swelled again, Jessica saw a flicker of movement among the crowd. Someone stepped forward, their expression grave. It was Nathan, and urgency doused his eyes. "Jessica," he said breathlessly, "there's something you need to know. It's about Mark and the plans he has." Just like that, the momentum was torn from beneath her, nerves coiling tightly once again. Suddenly, the challenge wasn't just about leading. It was about survival, about protecting everything they had set in motion. What dark secrets did Mark hold, and how far was he willing to go to thwart her vision? Jessica's heart raced as she locked eyes with Nathan. His urgency was palpable. It injected a cold wave of dread into her veins. The crowd, once filled with fierce optimism, now felt heavy with tension, as if everyone could sense the storm brewing. "What do you mean, Nathan?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The cheers had faded into a dull echo, replaced by a worried murmur that rippled through the gathering. Jessica took a step closer, trying to contain the sudden panic rising inside her. "What's going on?" Nathan glanced around as if he were wary of Mark's watching gaze, then leaned in closer. Mark's been planning something more than just his usual intimidation tactics. He's aligned himself with some influential people. The fear in his voice was unmistakable. "They've got a vested interest in keeping things the way they are. Your vision threatens that." Jessica felt her world tilt, the foundation below her shifting. "What are you saying? Who exactly does he have behind him?" "Businessmen, politicians, the whole system that wants to squash the change you're trying to create," Nathan replied, his eyes darting nervously. "The way he spoke to you just now? It's not just about mockery. He wants to undermine you and anyone who follows you." If he can't convince them, he'll resort to other measures. The crowd was watching. Their eyes flitted between Jessica and Nathan. She could feel the weight of their hope resting on her shoulders. Would they still believe in her when faced with peril? No, we can't let fear control us, she said, the fight surging within her once more. She turned to the crowd, forcing her voice to remain steady. Listen up. Faces turned toward her, concern etched in the lines of their brows. Yes, Mark is formidable, and yes, there are dark forces aligning with him. But fear is a choice. We're here together for a reason. We've already taken the first step towards real change, and we're not backing down now. The applause was hesitant, but it was there. Jessica took a deep breath, feeling the solidarity begin to blossom, even in the face of adversity. Those flickers of courage ignited in others set fire within her. Together we can uncover whatever he is plotting. We can prepare ourselves to rise above his manipulations, she declared, frantic breaths mingling with her words. We need to gather information, unite as one. We can't let him divide us. Just then, from the rear of the crowd, a voice rose up, a community voice that had been quiet, one she hadn't expected to see shine. Jessica's right. We can't be afraid. We have to fight for our future. For our children. It was Mr. Robinson, a dad from the neighborhood. His passion swept through the crowd like wildfire, rallying others to speak up. Jessica's heart warmed, but a part of her was still gnawing with worry. Would it be enough? And then she felt it, the shift in the atmosphere, the tide turning. The energy that once buzzed with excitement started to pulse with determination and resolve. The crowd erupted into chatter. Ideas crackled like sparks, each person wanting to contribute to the plan. But even as the crowd found its voice, Jessica could not shake the feeling that Mark was just biding his time. What would he do next? Let us meet later, Nathan urged, pulling her from her thoughts. We have work to do, but we need to stay under the radar. Mark won't let this go. We can't be reckless. As the crowd dispersed with newfound purpose, Jessica's heart weighted with conflict. She felt power in the community shaping around her, but the lurking danger of Mark's influence was every bit as real. In that moment of resolve, Jessica realized that leading was not just about vision, it was about vigilance and collaboration. What would it take to truly bring down the walls Mark had built? And what allies could she count on to stand beside her in the fight of their lives? The evening air was thick with intensity as Jessica and Nathan walked away from the gathering. They made their way down the winding path through the park, shadows creeping behind them as the sun dipped low on the horizon. The vibrant energy of the crowd had faded, leaving her wrapped in her own thoughts, grappling with the looming threat of Mark and his powerful allies. We need to act fast, Nathan said, breaking the silence. His voice was firm but tinged with concern. We can't let him catch us off guard. Jessica nodded, the weight of his words adding to the burden on her shoulders. What do you think he's planning? If he's got influential people backing him, what'll he do when he sees the crowd supporting us? Probably make a move to discredit you, Nathan said, his voice steadying in resolve. He'll try to turn the community against you, maybe even spread lies. That's what these types do, attack the character first, especially if they're threatened. Her stomach twisted. Mark had always been a master manipulator, using fear and separation to maintain control. Now with this new challenge, the stakes were higher. The thought of the community they had built being torn apart sent shivers down her spine. We can't let him win. We have to be ready to counter whatever he throws at us. Nathan scratched his head, deep in thought. We need to gather more evidence. We can't just fight his words, we need facts. If we expose his connections, the influence he has, that could shift the tides. Right, Jessica said, her determination igniting again. I'll reach out to Mr. Robinson. He seems to have strong connections in the neighborhood. He might have some information that could help us, she added, already formulating a plan in her mind. The thought invigorated her. If they could rally the community around the truth, perhaps that power could neutralize Mark's tactics. But doubt lingered, gnawing at her resolve. Would they listen? Would this stand the test of Mark's manipulation? As dusk settled, Nathan turned to face her. You're a beacon for these people, Jessica. You have to believe in yourself. We can inspire them not just to fight against Mark, but to believe in a better future too. Jessica met his eyes, feeling a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Nathan. Your faith in me helps more than you know. I won't let you down or them. That night she barely slept. Tossing and turning, her mind raced with ideas, strategies, and possibilities. The clock ticked in the silence, each second a reminder of the urgency of their task. The next day, after several phone calls and late-night brainstorming sessions, Jessica found herself standing before a small crowd of her closest allies at the park again. They sat on worn benches, their faces lit with curiosity, some still showing the weariness of uncertainty. "I have some news," she began, her heart pounding in anticipation. "We are going to form a council, a unified front to gather information, strategize, and prepare for whatever Mark might try next. We're stronger together, and we need to stand firm in our resolve." Nervous murmurs rippled through the crowd, but hope flickered visibly in their eyes. One by one they began to nod, some even voiced their support and eagerness to join the fight. But just as confidence began to take root, Jessica spotted a familiar figure in the distance. Mark. He stood at the edge of the park, arms crossed, studying the gathering with a sharp smile that sent chills down her spine. The realization washed over her like a cold wave. He was watching, waiting, ready to strike. "Stay alert," she whispered to Nathan, who had joined her side. "He knows." As they locked eyes, Jessica felt a force she couldn't quite place pass between them. Deep down she realized this wouldn't just be a battle of wills. It was a fight for the very soul of their community. What was Mark ultimately capable of? And could she rally enough strength within this burgeoning alliance to protect the dream they had forged? The sun rose over the small town, bathing the streets in golden light. Jessica stood at the park once again, surrounded by her allies. Their faces were etched with determination, their resolve palpable. Today was the day they would confront the shadows that Mark cast over their community. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves within. "We're here to reclaim our space, to stand for a future that honors our safety, our integrity, and our families." A ripple of nods came from the crowd, and she felt a warmth blossom in her chest. Mr. Robinson stepped forward, the wind rustling his hair. "This town deserves transparency. We deserve leaders who genuinely care." With a surge of energy from the crowd, she felt like they were weaving a tapestry of resistance, thread by thread. Mark's ominous shadow lingered in the background, but the unity they forged gave her strength. "Together we'll gather evidence, documents, testimonies," Jessica continued. "We won't allow fear and intimidation to silence us any longer." Cheers punctuated her words as the air filled with hope. Then from the corner of her eye, she saw Mark stepping forward from the shadows. His charismatic smile felt more sinister now. "What are you doing, Jessica? This is nonsense," he dismissed, his voice carrying a hint of desperation. "You're just stirring trouble." Jessica took a breath, standing tall. "No, Mark. We're taking a stand for what's right." The crowd rallied around her, their conviction growing stronger with each shout of support. "You may have tried to bend the truth before, but today we're rewriting our story." Mark's expression shifted, a flicker of anger crossing his face. "You're risking everything. All your efforts for what? A dream that will be crushed when reality hits you? But a dream worth chasing is worth the risk." Jessica shot back, feeling the warmth of her allies gathering behind her. "It's about creating a safety net for our children, for our future. Together we'll shine a light through your lies." Mark's bravado faltered as the crowd began to murmur among themselves, weighing the truth. Jessica felt an electric thrill run through her as support swelled around her. This time it was different. They weren't backing down, but suddenly a commotion echoed from the back. "What is happening?" A woman's voice broke through the noise, and Jessica turned to see Clara step forward. "We're not just standing by anymore. We're demanding accountability." She held up documents, papers fluttering in the wind, proof of the unsafe practices and the calls for action written alongside the names of former employees who had experienced the fallout firsthand. Tension hung in the air as people leaned in. Mark's facade cracked like porcelain under the weight of protesting voices. "Lies!" he barked, but his words were lost in the rising tide of defiance. Jessica looked out over her community, friends, neighbors, the faces of her family. Each set of eyes shone bright with unwavering strength. "We're making a choice today. A choice to say enough is enough. We will no longer be pawns in your game." As her voice rose, it rang with clarity and conviction. The crowd ignited into applause. Mark scoffed, but Jessica noticed sweat gathering at his temples, his confidence beginning to fray. Fine, go ahead, make your noise. It won't change the fact that this is a business. Then let us push back, Nathan chimed in, stepping beside Jessica. Your business built on lies and fear doesn't have to be ours. We're smarter than that. Cheers erupted once again, the sound filling the air with a palpable energy, one that drowned out Mark's protests. As she stood among her allies, a wave of hope washed over Jessica. This was the moment she had longed for, the harnessing of collective power to create change. She felt the warmth of inspiration coursing through her veins, filling her with a giddy determination. Suddenly her heart raced. This is just the beginning, she cried. We are going to follow through on this. We'll start by meeting every week, gathering information, strategizing, and holding each other accountable. We are reborn from victims of fear into champions of hope. With every cheer, Jessica felt herself transform. She wasn't just a local employee anymore. She was a leader, a beacon of change. So as the sun set, casting long shadows over the park, the group of determined souls stood united. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing they had each other to lean on. And in that moment, Jessica realized the truth. It wasn't just about exposing Mark. It was about forging an unbreakable bond that could illuminate any darkness. The battle was just beginning, but she finally felt at peace with the fight ahead. She would lead them, and together, they would rise toward the stars, all because they dared to believe in a brighter future. Now it was time for action. Join this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below your thoughts on this climax, what you felt throughout the story. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to be part of this incredible community that believes in standing for what's right.